So, woke book publishers are telling female authors they can't use the word woman in their books because it's offensive. We're going to react to this and so many other of your woke horror stories and personal situations and questions you have for me in this Voicemail Friday episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast, my daily show where we take on the craziest ideas in media, in politics, and across the internet, all from an independent perspective. Up first, guys, we're going to hear from one woman about the really insane experience she had while publishing a book in the wellness space from activist editors and publishers who wanted to censor her word choice in a truly absurd way. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Brad. I'm a writer in the wellness space. When my book was under contract, every reference to women, pregnancy, and breastfeeding was stripped during copy editing, despite the obvious safety implications. Those terms, according to my publisher, were non-inclusive, and to me, it felt like erasure. I was told that if I pushed back, my publisher could reject the manuscript and demand I pay the advance back. After lecturing me about using the word woman in reference to pregnancy and breastfeeding, my editor actually ended the call by saying, without irony, "We really see women as the primary market for this book." It disturbs me that while my publisher objected to my referencing women as the sex that gives birth and breastfeeds, they had no problem identifying women as who they wanted to sell stuff to. We eventually reached a solution that preserved the books and my word's integrity, but that experience left a mark.
Yeah, I'm sure that experience did leave a mark because it sounds awful, but also, and this is unfortunate, but it's just the truth, it doesn't sound atypical. It doesn't sound that unusual for book publishing, which, with the exception of a few conservative or right leaning imprints, is a very left wing space run by not to stereotype here, but a lot of woke white women very eager to show their allyship and how inclusive and how progressive they are. And so they pull this kind of thing, even to the point of erasing their own existence. It is absolutely insane to claim that you can't talk about women being pregnant or women as the people who get pregnant. That's just a fact. And facts are not offensive. Facts can never be unspeakable. That's just ridiculous. And look, I don't even think most actual everyday trans people who just want to live their lives would be offended by that. It's got to be some like non-binary editor who spends too much time on TikTok and Tumblr who gets worked up over this, and then everyone else just caves to it, even though they know it's insane. They know it's ridiculous. They cave to it because they're afraid of being yelled at or called a bigot or being reported to HR or whatever, but it's absurd. It's demeaning to women. It's the kind of thing that has turned people against the trans movement, right? When you're a female and you go to the doctor's office and fill out a form that says birthing person, that's not inclusive. That's like dehumanizing people and stripping them of the language that they use to refer to themselves factually speaking. That's not going to promote tolerance or inclusion. It's probably going to do the opposite and lead to backlash. I know the progressive commentator Anna Kasparian, who I disagree with on many things, but I like her as a person. She's spoken about this, how she first started to question the extreme aspects of the trans movement when she encountered things like birthing person on forms and chest feeding and this kind of bizarre language that no one in the real world ever uses, yet sometimes they impose on women against their will in the name of inclusion. I think it's one of the most absurd and counterproductive things imaginable in this space. And it's the kind of thing that can only happen in a just tremendously skewed echo chamber. Book publishing is just run by all these super progressive people, and there's not enough sane voices in there to maybe say like, hey, maybe we shouldn't do that. And I take your point 1000% about how hilarious it is. I mean, it's not hilarious, it's dark, but it's also kind of funny that they won't let you say the word woman in this context, though I'm curious what your solution was, because I maybe it's just not coming to me, but I'm struggling to imagine a way to compromise on the language here. But I would love to know if you can follow up with me what that solution was. It is hilarious, though, that they have no problem marketing your book to women. When it comes time to take their money, suddenly they know what a woman is. And that is diabolical. But like I said, it is not surprising for the book publishing industry, which is, for the most part, a captured industry run by ideologues and activists, especially when it comes to some of these issues. And it is not great, not amazing. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Hit that like button if you haven't yet. Make sure you're subscribed. And remember, you can always tune into the Brad versus Everyone podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to audio podcasts as well. If you don't have time to sit down and watch my beautiful face on screen, you can take us with you on the go. And guys, if you want to send in a voicemail with your woke horror story, your personal life situation you want me advice on, or just a question you have for me about politics or life or whatever, the link to send one in is in the description. Next, we're going to hear about an insane story because apparently some companies are now offering menstruation leave, so like time off when you're on your period, for biological males. Yes, seriously, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Brad. My name is Kate. I've been listening to your show for a couple of years now, and I love listening to it on my way to work. So thank you very much for everything that you do. Couple of woke horror stories. So I'll start with at work. We've now got introduced a policy of menstruation leave for women and inclusive of trans women. Now, I'm all for menstruation leave, and I think for women and trans men makes sense. For trans women, doesn't quite make sense. It's also quite a woke workplace, so whenever you have like a meeting, you've got an acknowledgement of country. If you're in Australia, you know what that is, and pronouns. So every meeting takes longer than it has to, which is frustrating. I've also, on my personal life, an ex of mine, for a few reasons we were exes, but I'm a bisexual woman. He is a straight man. I am against children transitioning because I'm not a lunatic, and he is an advocate for children transitioning, even though he has no actual understanding about what this means and what the effects are. And when I tried to have this conversation about this is the reality of what these surgeries and drugs do to children, I was told to shut the fuck up, literally. So unfortunately, at the moment, when you speak out, you're shut down. So thank you for continuing to speak out for all of us. Love you, Brad.
Well, thank you so much for the note and for tuning into the show. And this ex of yours sounds lovely. The woke people are like, listen to women. Well, but not that woman. She needs to shut the F up. Now, the thing that really stood out to me about this was the menstruation leave bit. Though the meetings thing is funny to me, I always say about the land acknowledgements, give it back or shut the heck up. Seriously. Give it back or shut up. Otherwise, you're just virtue signaling. It's dumb. And the pronouns thing, that was such a big thing when I was younger, when I was in college. Every class, what's your pronoun? Blah, blah, blah. But it seems to be going a little bit out of fashion here in the US, but apparently not overseas. I do not think it is productive. I think it probably highlights trans people in an unusual way, or calls more emphasis rather than just allowing anyone to blend in. And yeah, it definitely would take a lot of time to do that. Every meeting, you have to go around and say your pronouns. It sounds a little bit ridiculous, especially if you're working with the same people and it hasn't changed. What, like, I still got to do it every day? But I want to talk mostly about the menstruation leave bit at your office or at your employer. That is astounding to me in one sense, but I guess in another sense, it's not that surprising. Look, I don't really have strong thoughts one way or another on this idea of menstruation leave. I've never had a period, so maybe it makes sense that women may need leave sometimes if they're having very severe or heavy periods. Um, and it also makes sense that, like you pointed out in your note, that trans men who are biologically female may also need menstruation leave because they menstruate because they are females. However, trans women are biological males and do not experience menstruation. They don't have periods. So the idea that they would be given time off of work for their non-existent periods is one of those things that's so absurd. You almost can't believe it's real, but I do believe it's real. And you have to know that even the person doing it knows it's absurd and is just like afraid. That can be the only explanation, because I don't believe, or I struggle to believe, that somebody could rise to a position of manager or CEO or director of a company and yet have such little common sense or logic that they actually think trans women have periods. Are we serious? Am I being punked? Is Ashton Kutcher about to pop up with the cameras? Throwback for those who get it. But yeah, that's insane. Keep fighting the good fight. Thanks for the note. And guys, let me know what you think. Have you encountered this anywhere? Menstruation leave or biological males claiming to have periods? That's a new one for me. Next, we're going to hear from somebody who's facing discrimination on the basis of her national origin from the progressive, tolerant, and loving crowd. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Brad. You're speaking with Katrina. So my story is that recently with the Texas floods, I've kind of been reminded that medical staff are not exempt from political bias. So my side of it is I had a baby in March of this year, and I've had to stop telling people that I'm from South Africa. I've had a doctor tell me I need to take Elon Musk back with me when I go. Granted, I never want to leave this country, but besides the point, I had an EMS lady who came out because we had a gas leak with my newborn, and she was all friendly and smiles until she found out where I was from, and then she just went like cold and like cold shoulder, and I was like, oh gosh. And yeah, so I'm just nervous these days of telling medical staff, because with a new baby you have to go for checkups, where I'm from, never mind what my politics are, because my husband's very pro-Trump. But at the end of the day, we are both legal immigrants and we can't vote anyways. So, like, what's the point of bringing politics up anyways? And yeah, I just wanted to get your opinion on whether we should have such bias in the medical practitioner field. Love you.
Wow. So thanks for sharing your story. And no is the short answer. There shouldn't be any form of bias in the medical field. Now, of course, hard to say how common that really is, but in your experience, if it's happening, that's terrible. And you're never going to completely eliminate bias from human interactions, but you should at least be trying to be unbiased. And doesn't really sound like these medical professionals in your case are. And it's funny to me because Elon Musk is an American citizen. Yes, he was an immigrant, but he obtained his citizenship. So these people saying, like, go back or take him with you. I mean, if that was said about a different kind of immigrant, maybe of a different skin tone, or a liberal or progressive immigrant, many of those same types would view that as racist or xenophobic. And I do find that interesting how quick they are to switch up. But I just, at the heart of this is some weird collectivist blame game, guilt by association thinking that I just kind of categorically reject. So you're from South Africa and so is Elon Musk, and they think Elon Musk is bad, so therefore you're associated with badness. That's like a very weird perspective. Or even if they're thinking of, some of the government policies in South Africa or the controversies or kind of the racial tensions going on there, that isn't your fault or your responsibility. You wouldn't meet a Venezuelan person. I wouldn't meet a Venezuelan person on the streets of Miami and be like, "Wow, you must be bad because the Venezuelan government is so terrible." Like, what? That's not how individuals work. It's just so bizarre. And I really do think that this collectivist worldview can be a handicap, can be very limiting. And yeah, you don't deserve to face any kind of stigma or discrimination for the country in which you were born. That's not a choice. It's not something you can control or change. And it's wild to me that anybody, let alone highly educated professionals, would allow their subconscious bias to override their critical thinking skills like this. I don't think, though, I think you shouldn't back down from your heritage and telling people where you're from. And if doctors or medical professionals treat you poorly because of it, I mean, there's probably a way to report them to their licensing body or what have you. And if that's what happened, that would be appropriate, honestly. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the support, and hope that you don't face more issues like this in the future. Up next, are we not allowed to have biological preferences in dating anymore? I don't know. Some people actually seem to think that, and we're going to hear from one person who's been bullied for not wanting to date trans men.
Hi, my name is Faye. I'm a cisgendered gay male. I had a falling out with a trans man who was my friend on and off again in March. The reason why we had a falling out is because of their woke ideology ideas, and they constantly wanted to try to push that on me. They wanted a hive mind type deal, if you know, you know. Um, and that they constantly asked me why I want to date trans men and everything. And they wanted me to simplify my speech, which they said I was speaking too complex. So to speak on it, on the whole thing, they said they were a gay man and why wouldn't I date trans men? That's the plot of it. So basically, I told them I'm not dating trans men because I'm a person who believes in evolution. I believe in biology. I believe in anatomy, and I believe in there's only two genders. And I believe, that your gender identity has nothing to do with your sexual orientation at all. No matter how you dress it up, at the end of the day, a trans man is still a woman. I told them I wouldn't mind dating a cisgendered man with feminine qualities, but I'm not going to date a woman in any shape or form. And then I told them that you can't be a gay man because that's an experience that you wouldn't understand because you're not a gay man, you're a trans man. And they said I was attacking them, I was attacking their people, that I was transphobic, that I'm a trans woman in denial, all because I didn't agree with their views. Like, how do you view this situation that I went through in March?
Well, this sounds like somebody you should not, in fact, be friends with. I mean, this whole discourse, this whole like, you have to be attracted to me, or why won't you date this kind of person, is always given slightly predatory vibes to me. Like, normal people don't think and talk like that. If you don't want to date me, why would I care? There's plenty of people that would, right? And same with like trans men. Lots of people are open to dating trans men. And the idea that you need to like bully or shame people into wanting to sleep with you is weird. Okay, that's a red flag to me in any context, in any scenario, including in this like weird trans discourse around sexuality. It's not offensive, it's not bigoted, and it's not hateful to be like strictly gay and not be attracted to females or want to be with females. That is homophobic, actually. They're essentially suggesting like, well, you haven't tried it yet, or you just haven't found the right kind of whatever. It's like I'm getting flashbacks, y'all. I'm actually getting flashbacks. And again, it's just not normal to want to force or push yourself on other people. Now, I will say that the part of this where you're not wrong, but maybe this was ill advised to say, is the part where you told this person, you can't be a gay man, you don't understand. I mean, I think technically you're correct. However, that part, just let them. I would have recommended that you just let them be them, and if they want to call themselves something, whatever. And trying to like tell them what they really are is probably not going to go over well with a friend. So maybe that was a mistake on your part. You could have maybe bit your tongue on that one. But this person, it doesn't seem like this friendship was really going to work out, right? Because this person seems to be kind of intolerant, kind of creepy, and sort of pushy. Like, it's just weird. It's very pushy and weird to like, why won't you date me? Why won't you? If you just haven't tried it yet. Like, no, no thanks. Goodbye. That's red flag behavior, if you ask me. So I don't think you're wrong to not be interested in dating biological females. I think that's what it means to be strictly homosexual. I mean, some people are a little bit, sexuality actually is kind of a spectrum for some people. So some people might be mostly gay, but open to trans men as well, because maybe they're just a little bit on the bi scale somewhere, and that's totally fine. I'm not going to hyper police their word choice if they want to call themselves gay, even if it's not like technically, literally true. But not everyone is like that. Some people are just gay and they don't get to label us problematic or offensive for that. They can take that and shove it where the sun don't shine, as far as I'm concerned. Thanks for the message. Thanks for tuning in. And don't let the kind of creepy hate get you down. Up next, somebody has a question for me about my views on the minimum wage. Let's take a listen.
Hi, Brad. My name's Kat. Not really, but I've heard you kind of talk about the case against raising the federal minimum wage, and I would just love it if you could kind of explore the reasons behind it and the reasons pro or against it, and besides, it causes inflation to go up because inflation's always rising. I'd love to hear a little bit more in depth about being priced out of the market and etc. Because my partner has also mentioned that, but I feel really uneducated about it, and I'd love to hear more about that from you. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the note. And this is a super interesting question. So I really actually don't think there should be any federal minimum wage. And what I mean by that is that minimum wages should be set at the state and local level because the country is just too big and too different to have some sort of one size fits all policy solution. I mean, a $15 federal minimum wage, for example, would be not that big a deal in major cities, in Los Angeles or in New York City, but in rural Alabama would be massively higher than the average wages. And it would be way above, relative to cost of living and all that. So I just don't actually think there's any need for a one size fits all solution for the whole country because I think states and localities can tailor their minimum wages to their local economic conditions much better than kind of one Congress can for the whole country. And the other thing about doing it entirely at the state and local level is that then you can see what works and what doesn't, right? You have experiments. So maybe one city pushes their minimum wage up to $20 an hour. Maybe another state gets rid of the minimum wage entirely. And then you can see what happens, which one performs better, whose economy grows stronger, whose labor force thrives. And then you have kind of a natural experiment that will lead itself towards better policy over time. Whereas if you just have a one size fits all, you don't get that kind of variation in results. So I just really don't think there should be any federal minimum wage at all. And then at the state and local level, I'm very skeptical of raising the minimum wage, though if it's going to be done, that is where I think it should happen because there are consequences and trade-offs associated with it. If there weren't, we could just raise the minimum wage for everyone to $200 an hour and we could all be rich and wealthy and all make tons of money. It's like there's a very utopian pie in the sky idea of, just raise it. People deserve more. And it's like, yes, we all want people to earn more. But people can actually get wage increases without increases in the minimum wage through competitive labor markets where employers just offer more. I know not too long ago, labor was in really hot demand, and where I was living in Michigan, and you would drive by McDonald's where they have hiring now $22 an hour, $500 signing bonus, like way above the minimum wage because they needed workers. And in a thriving capitalist economy where workers are in demand, wages can go up without hiking the minimum wage. And I think that's vastly preferable because when you do hike the minimum wage, it often does get passed along through higher prices, and it does cause unemployment because some people are priced out of the labor market. Think of it like this. From an employer's perspective, if it is legally required that I pay at minimum $15 an hour, well, then if I have a teenager or if I have an adult with no education or very minimal skills and they're only able to produce $13 an hour in value for me as an employer, then it's basically illegal for me to profitably employ that person. Whereas if I was able to pay them $11.50 an hour, then I can make money off hiring them, they can make money from having a job, and it's a win-win. Whereas under the minimum wage law, $15 an hour, it's illegal for that mutually beneficial consensual transaction to happen. I don't think that makes a lot of sense, or that you're actually helping that worker by pricing them out of the market. That's kind of the short version. There's a lot of complicated debate and research and arguments to be had about this, but those are my thoughts kind of summed up. Thank you for the interesting question. Up next, we've got another interesting question about the Democratic Party.
Hey, Rod. So my question for you, that I'm curious to get your input on, is regarding the future of the Democratic Party. So, for quick reference, I am a gay conservative from Colorado, which is obviously a blue state. Now, one thing historically is that political parties that become increasingly radical or critical of the average American usually doesn't do so well and has historically kind of fallen off. So I was wondering if this could, or if this happening to the Democratic Party is a realistic prediction of mine, because I have noticed that the Democratic Party has become very radical and very critical of the average American voter. So I just wanted to get your input on that, and I look forward to getting your opinion on this.
Well, thank you for the call and for the question. I think what I would say is that no, I mean, frankly, I would like us to have a multi party system with more than two options. And I think both of the current parties suck in different ways. But I think either of them actually like falling apart or collapsing entirely or being replaced is pretty unrealistic, because they are able to use the power that they currently hold to kind of rig the system to block new parties and block competition. And then also, what's more likely to happen is that the party morphs. I mean, you look at what Donald Trump did to the Republican Party. He essentially did a hostile takeover from inside the party in 2016. And he totally changed what it meant to be a Republican, what the Republican position was on things like trade and foreign policy and immigration and many other issues. He came in and just transformed the party. So I think it's more likely that something like that would happen to the Democratic Party, where it really shifts and becomes something different, but it's still the Democratic Party. I think actually it imploding or falling apart or being replaced is unlikely. What will happen is if they lose long enough and lose hard enough, then eventually they'll get the message and shift some of their ideas. We've seen this play out in American history in the past with different political parties where, you know, they lose and lose and lose and they kind of transform. Maybe they could be replaced, but like I said, there's just, and that did happen in history. Obviously, you had parties that were prominent and then were replaced by the current two parties. However, I think the system has been rigged to stop that, or to make it very, very difficult now in some ways that weren't present back then. So I do think the Democratic Party is here to stay. What do you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments. Up next, we've got an interesting question from somebody about whether it's appropriate or whether they should try to speak Spanish, broken Spanish potentially, to somebody who doesn't speak English. Let's listen.
Hey Brad, my name's Andrew and I'm a longtime fan of your show. It's been a good source of unbiased news coverage for me. Anyway, my boyfriend's originally from El Salvador and his mom doesn't speak English. However, I'm a Spanish major, so should I use my broken Spanish to try talking to her or should I wait until I'm fluent? I know that you've mentioned that you minored in Spanish in college. Did you have to study abroad for that? If so, which country did you go to? I love your content and highly appreciate your well-informed perspective on politics and economics.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words and for the message. So, this is a two-parter. So, for the first part, should you speak Spanish, your kind of broken Spanish, to your boyfriend's mother who only speaks Spanish and doesn't speak English? My gut says yes, and that people find it endearing and, you know, they like it when you try to speak their language, even if you're not very good at it. That's been my experience when I've traveled abroad in Spain, and in other places. However, there's also like a very easy solution to this, which is ask your boyfriend. He probably knows what would be better and what would his mom would like versus what might offend his mom. So I'd ask him. I'm pretty sure he'll be able to tell you what the right approach there is. I actually minored in Spanish. You are right. I have mentioned that on the show. I was never fluent because I didn't travel abroad. I didn't do a semester in a Spanish speaking country or anything like that. partly because I actually graduated my college and my undergraduate education in 3 years. I took credit overloads. I had a bunch of AP credits, and I needed to save the money, so I only did 3 years. So because of that, I wasn't able to study abroad. So I've never been fluent, and I've actually lost a lot of my Spanish, though maybe it'll come back now that I'm in Miami and I'm hearing people speak Spanish all the time again. But I was able to, I would say I was conversational in Spanish. Now, my boyfriend actually was fluent because he did do a long, I think, almost a full semester abroad. So that's kind of the difference. And yes, I think if you want to be fully fluent and you're a Spanish major, you are going to have to go spend some time immersed in a majority Spanish speaking area. That's really the only way to make that leap. You could study the books for 10 years, and I don't think you'll ever quite get there. But best of luck to you with your education in Spanish and with your relationship. Happy for you. All right, guys, that'll be it for this episode of the Brad versus Everyone podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please do make sure you're subscribed if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button before you go. Send in your voice notes for my next Voicemail Friday episode. Yada, yada, yada. And we'll talk again real soon.